Hello and welcome to the Node Testing Working Group meeting for March 18th, 2016. I think the first thing on the agenda, if I can find it, is stand up, and I see that Colin has started typing.
I added some abilities to the test runner to allow for you to say, I expect this test to fail. I needed to do that so that I could add support for testing known issues because all of them are supposed to fail. And then I went ahead and pulled some scripts from the issue tracker and actually created known issues. That's about all as far as testing goes.
Well, that's awesome. I'm really happy that the known issues thing exists. Joao, I think you'd be next.
I didn't make any progress related to testing recently. So just on the build side, actually, there is a new check on the Windows job to make sure that no file names are committed in Git that are incompatible with Windows. That would be it. Santiago, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah, I added a couple of new tests and fixed some flaky ones, and also talked to Johan about the Jenkins access and helped him to set up the per job access. So he told me once the release CI was ready, he would start setting this up. That's it.
Cool. Miles.
Okay, so on the testing front, we got the NPM test, the basic NPM test landed, which is great. And then was it Santi? I think I forget who it was came through and then updated the test and extended it a bit. So that's really great. We've got some basic testing going on there. Won't have as many breakages. Also continue to work on Canary in the Gold Mine. There's a couple of pull requests sitting in there. If people have time to do a code review, that'd be great. One in particular is to add back the ability to specify custom scripts for modules. We had that originally, but deprecated it because we didn't think anyone was using it. And of course, after we deprecated it, people who were using it showed up and said they were. So it's back now and fully tested. I've also got another pull request in for beefing up the code coverage. So yeah, anything people could do to chime in there would be great.
Cool. That come next is me. I've done a few things, but the ones that are relevant right now is one is I have a pull request open to fix test HTTP GET pipeline problem, which seems to be the flakiest of the flakies that we have right now. That and test DNS. Actually, I should throw in test DNS. Yeah, so there's a PR for test HTTP GET pipeline problem. It could use some review. I'd love to get it landed. It required some archaeology into old Google Groups stuff and whatnot because this test dates from when Ryan was overseeing the project, so it goes back a ways. Bug report was actually originally filed by Michael Rogers. Little trivia there. Then there's test DNS that I do not have a pull request for, but I have an issue where I'm trying to diagnose it and determine a reasonable solution. These are, to my observation anyway, the two flaky tests that are failing the most and causing the most problems. So the DNS one especially could use someone who knows what they're talking about. I'll post the issue link in the meeting notes when I post them to the repo later on. And last but not least, I quickly drafted a roadmap doc today, which really isn't a roadmap doc. It's just a laundry list of everything I think we should do. And hopefully we can talk about it today and sort of, if we can't prioritize and organize everything, we can at least identify like what the next one or two things are that we really ought to hit hard. And I think that's it for me. So that brings us to the agenda.
One more thing. Sorry. I
God.
created a pull request about removing the curve dependency of some tests. So if you could take a look at it, I mean, I think it works, but it would be great.
Okay, I'll try to find the PR for that and add that to the meeting notes as
Okay,
well.
I'll copy it later if you want to.
Sure, either way. Okay, great. That brings us to the agenda proper. Does anybody have anything they want to add to the agenda before we dive on in? Okay, awesome. So first thing on the agenda is really more just an announcement and an opportunity to high-five each other. Hooray, we're chartered. That finally happened. CTC chartered us like a week and a half ago, or maybe even longer, and the Build Working Group chartered us at their meeting earlier this week. So we're official. We're in the workinggroups.md document, and for what it's worth, I guess that and whatever the price of coffee is in your particular area will get you a cup of coffee. Okay. So then there were some deliverables from the last meeting. I think, Miles, did you end up opening the issue in the testing repo for finding and eliminating, like there was that issue around, make test add-ons creates files in test/add-ons rather than in a temp directory?
I didn't start the issue, but I think I started the ball rolling when we found that the linter was breaking on the generated tests.
Yeah, so I guess what I'll try to do is find where that issue is being discussed, and if not, I'll just open something in the repo later today, because I don't want that ball to get dropped. I don't know that it needs to be addressed right away, but that's an annoying problem when it comes up. All right. Also from last meeting, Alexis opened an issue on how to motivate collaborators to address flaky tests. It's in the testing repo. It's issue number 21. Nobody's commented on it, and I don't know if we want to treat it like a placeholder for now. Just it's there so we don't forget to address it at some point, or if we actually want to get people talking in it or not. But feel free to take a look and comment. I'm sure he would appreciate it. And then the last item from last meeting is the roadmap, which I tried to include everything I would have put on the agenda in the roadmap, and then some things. So if you go to Node.js/testing pull request number 25, the roadmap is in there, and I would encourage people to pull it up and look at it right now, which is what I'm doing, except I just typoed. All right, so it's a bunch of bulleted items, and I'm not sure what the best way to approach this is. I don't think we want to read through it right now aloud and talk about it or anything, but I wonder if we want to pull out like the one or two things that either we're already doing a lot of, or if not that, then things we ought to be doing right away, sort of near-term things, or if this is even like a good use of our time. Did we lose you, Miles?
Did everyone go dark there?
Everyone got quiet, but I don't think anyone else logged off. I think it was just you. Anybody else?
No, just mouse.
And I see that the formatting on this document is messed up.
I wonder if we should have a policy like any test that uses timeouts should go in sequential and not in parallel.
I think I like your thinking there, but what is your thinking there? Is it just that like if you include a timer?
Yes, if the test depends on timing for any reason, even if the time is big enough, then it should go in sequential and not run in parallel with anything else.
Okay, so the way the timers work, they're typically put in there so that a test that fails will end and announce its failure rather than just hang until it finally times out. So what's the reason for wanting to make sure that happens sequentially rather than in parallel?
If other processes are running in the single core machines that we have, that could be a factor that makes tests run much slower, or if there is
yes,
not enough RAM memory to run the tests, that could make it much slower. Depending on the machine and depending on a lot of factors that can make the difference between a passing and a failing test, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that also probably increases the likelihood of timers firing, quote unquote, out of order. One that should fire later will fire sooner, just because the event loop doesn't get around to processing things until they're both ready to fire, at which point ordering is not guaranteed. Yeah, that's actually a good idea.
And also we have revisited a few tests to remove the timeouts and replace them instead by logic that always works. Only do something when something else has happened instead of waiting for some time. So this could be a motivation to find solutions like those so that we can bring the tests back to parallel.
So this is actually, so this suggests to me that maybe what we might want to do, if not first-ish, is sort of document testing practices, and maybe sort of take things like this, like moving tests to that rely on timers, moving them to sequential until such a time as they are not dependent on a timer. Maybe what we want to do is document testing practices and sort of have maybe like 3 things, like all tests, we'd have to get buy-in from other collaborators on this, but all tests must do these things. We think all tests should do these things, and maybe like, or maybe just 2 levels or whatever, but sort of document those things. Especially the timer thing has been particularly problematic and controversial, I guess. I mean, it I think certainly you, me, and Santi have seen that the timers, the use of arbitrary timers will often result in a test being flaky in surprising ways, and but I've certainly met some resistance when from time to time when I've tried to remove timers and just let tests hang when they fail, and maybe sort of trying to build some kind of consensus around what the right approach is in these situations would be helpful. So that when we come across these flaky tests, the solution, we always solve it the same way.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
My feeling is that Most of the time, the use of timers in the test is not needed at all. I mean, as you all said, most of the time you can solve it by changing the logic. But I think I would write in a best practices document something like this. Try to avoid most of the time try to avoid the use of timers because probably it's not that useful. That useful. I don't know.
I think, Rich, from what you are saying, if the timeout is used to make a test fail before the test.py timeout expires, then maybe we could reward this as we allow tests to have a smaller timeout than the global timeout that we have for all tests, because in some situations it might make sense to have a smaller timeout. This should be the same way for all tests that use this mechanism.
So, Rich, you said you've run into a bunch of resistance about removing these timers, but I would think the CI would be at a good enough state right now that, the number of times we would encounter that is going to take, what, 1 or 2 seconds out of your day?
So I think you're talking. So I think I'm not sure what you mean because when I talk about failing faster, I'm not talking about it happening on the CI. I mean, I think people want it to fail fast on the command line and get a good message, which a timeout allows you to log something to the console rather than just sort of hang forever and ever.
Could we add a mechanism?
And I agree that I actually think it should just hang forever and ever, but not everybody agrees with me. Go ahead, Joao.
Maybe we could just add a mechanism to have shorter timeouts when people run the tests in the command line.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Like make test CI would use the default timeout for all the tests, and we could add something in common maybe that make test in the console would use a shorter timeout for some tests.
Yeah, it would be great if it was the way it worked was something like, there's the timeout on CLI that always happens, at 60 seconds, except on ARM, then it's on the Raspberry Pis, then it's 120 seconds or whatever. But that's all determined by Jenkins. That's not determined by us. And then that's what you get on that's not what you get on the command line. You get, it hangs forever. But if there's a way to specify, say with even a comment, the way, or something that tools.py will pick up or something like that, a way to specify this test should time out in X number of seconds, and if it fails, maybe here's what to print or something like that. But that might get a little complicated.
The test timeout is not in Jenkins; it's in test.py. So maybe some Python there could do the trick.
I did not realize that. That's great.
Yeah, is there an environment variable we could set or detect on Jenkins?
We can easily pass an argument in the makefile. If it's test CI it already passes ptap to produce the tap output. It could pass something else to change the timeout.
Okay, so this sounds like something that could be a kernel of a larger document around good test practices. Something else I'm curious about is if we want to, this might be a little further down the road, but we don't really have any unit tests. Like all of our tests are end-to-end tests, and it seems like if we took the tests that really only just test one thing in say the assert module or something, and if there was a way to sort of convert those tests into something more like well, you know, the more I'm talking about this, the more I'm realizing that it's really just not that straightforward. I don't know why that never occurred to me before. I'm going to actually stop talking and let somebody else talk about something. Okay, so it's looking like maybe this idea of having the roadmap be the agenda may not have been my best idea ever. But I think maybe what we can do is two deliverables to take from this conversation. One is I need to further revise the roadmap, so so we can talk about, you know, maybe I can, or someone else, if someone else wants to dive in on it, but sort of propose what the first few things we should focus on are, what the order of things would be, maybe even who. And the other thing is somebody, maybe me, maybe Joao, maybe somebody else, can start creating a document around what we think are, you know, some good best practices. In fact, even if all we want to do is just handle the timer issue and just sort of like go through the process of seeing how it goes, kind of moving something like that through the project and getting it to a point where it's being, you know, where the recommendation is being implemented. Maybe you know, the timer issue is a really good test case because it's something that causes a lot of problems and something that, you know, we seem to all have pretty strong feelings about. There is at least one other issue I wanted to talk about. If nobody has any comments on those, I'm gonna see if anybody has comments on those. So the other thing on the roadmap that I kind of wanted to mention at least is I put in an item there for sort of recruitment and onboarding, which kind of it's too bad Alexis isn't here because it kind of dovetails nicely with his you know, his focus from the last meeting on how do we motivate people to fix the flaky tests. And I guess I just wanted to just put out there that I'm very interested in ideas of how to make it appealing for people to work on tests, join the work group, that sort of thing. And the only thing I've come up with so far is you know, we might want to aggressively tag some test items good first contribution when they are in fact good first contributions, but that's a pretty weak idea, I think.
No, I think we should keep this in mind, and this is very easy to forget.
What is very easy to forget?
Labeling as good first contributions.
Ah, yes, yes. So call it for, I don't know if people viewing on YouTube would be able to see this, but Colin just wrote, convincing people to work on tests is hard, and has a frowny emoji there. Okay, well,
Maybe removing the timers is a good first contribution. Maybe. There are lots of them in the tests.
yeah, maybe, or maybe even just having someone either via an automated fashion or just via inspection, identifying all of the arbitrary timers, that might be a good first contribution. Okay, well, this has been like college radio levels of dead air. So I think unless there's more someone wants to talk about, I think I'm gonna take back the gonna document the deliverables we talked about today and see who wants to get to work on them.
I like to ask the build group guys if do you know when the per job access will be available? Do you know some of it?
The what? Sorry.
The per job access in Jenkins. I mean, it was what I talked to Johan was about giving working groups or people access to some jobs, and I think he was working on it. And if you know,
No, I don't know.
Are you,
I know we're not going to move forward with the testing Jenkins so soon, but I don't know if Joan is doing anything else about it.
okay.
so Santi, are you just talking about like just having access to be able to start things like stress tests and stuff like that, or are you actually like access to be able to do some administrative stuff on?
Yes, that was the idea. I talked to Johan because we talked last meeting, and he told me first he had to be able to give access per job because they couldn't do it, and I think they know he knows how to do it now, but I want what we talked last time, the stress testing and so on. I don't know if I've explained myself.
Well,
Sorry?
I said regardless, we should get you access to the. We should get you onboarded so you can at least start your own test jobs.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I had to miss the last meeting. I couldn't do it, but I hope the next one.
Yeah, me too. Okay, cool. Is there anything else that we want to talk about?
Small one. I apologize if it was already brought up, but I don't think it was. There is an open issue opened by Orange Mocha 3 days ago on checking commit messages in CI. And just in general, I think we could be thinking about how to test these messages and make sure that they're, working. One workflow I was thinking about was something that just like a pre-push Git hook that we could have as part of like, hey, you're onboarded to Node, install these Git hooks, and it could just check to make sure there's a PR URL and are reviewed by at least one person or two people before you can push to master. I'm not sure if I think that's a little tangential to the issue that they currently have, which is checking in CI. But I think that this is an important thing for us to start to formalize to avoid, like all the pains that come along with incorrect PR messages.
Yeah, so I don't think we should focus on doing that in the CI. Rod made a good point about whenever we run the CI, we're not going to have all the metadata yet. So I'm on board with your idea of having some type of commit or push hook.
You do want to be a little careful if we're hoping, and I know that Alexis probably is, but if we're hoping that at some point, as am I, that we will have the metadata added by an automated tool rather than via the current method of copying and pasting and typing. If that's going to happen, then people might well, I guess it's not that big a deal, but people might have to uninstall any pre-commit hook that checks for that stuff, or maybe not. I don't know. Just thinking aloud. I'll shut up now.
Well, I would imagine, Rich, that like a smart tool that's adding the metadata would only add metadata if the metadata doesn't exist, and otherwise it would just verify the metadata. So
I think we ran into that before. I could be wrong, but there was a period where we were trying to have the CI add it for us, and I think it started adding it multiple times. Alexis would remember better than me, but I think we've already been down that road.
Yeah. I think early on, Alexis and I in one of these meetings, I think, talked about that was the Node accept pull request job that he had set up that did not work out. I think the primary problem though was that there were so many false positive. I mean, so many test failures, flaky tests that that it just became unworkable. But yeah, it was also adding multiple metadata and doing other things, I'm sure. Good times.
So
well, having something that would add the metadata and having this hook that would check the metadata aren't really mutually exclusive anyway, so I don't think it would hurt to look into this.
There's already, I'm gonna just paste it in here. Colin made a tool called Core Get Reviewers, which I recently just hooked up proper GitHub auth into. That will actually generate the PR URL and reviewed by bit of the commit for you, and output that. And truthfully, I imagine we're like one bash script away from being able to use that and like git commit amend to essentially automate the process of just adding those. So yeah, like I don't know if we want to take that script one step further. If we can kind of do this in baby steps, we have a script that can generate the data. We have another script that can append it to a commit message. We can kind of like through the combination of those, like make a little tool or a little linter or something for commit messages on push. Like if you're pushing to if the remote is Node.js/node and the branch, well, actually, we could probably just do it on remote. Like if you're pushing upstream, then you probably should be reviewing it. But there'll definitely be edge cases like during releases and whatnot. But we could definitely have it better than where we're at right now.
Cool. Anything else?
I forgot one book. I copied in the chat. This one is the book Test Debug Port from Command Line. Apparently, it's Ben Norhus said it's a book, but I don't know if we should move it to the known issues or mark it as a flaky test, because it's not. It happens from time to time. It's not very easy to reproduce. So I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's a tough one. That is not easy to fix.
Should we move it to the new known issues folder or just mark as flaky for the CI not to complain? I don't know. Or just leave it as it is.
It's a good question. I'd want to take a deeper look, although I'm kind of inclined to certainly just trust Ben. Yeah. Yeah, that one needs some eyes on it for sure. All right. Well, I don't know if we're gonna come up with an answer here, unless somebody's actually like is anybody actually looking at this right now and thinking deeply about it and wants 60 seconds to formulate their thoughts?
Okay, we can comment in the issue. No problem.
Is this marked as flaky?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. I don't think so. Let me check.
If it is flaky, then it should be marked as flaky.
So this one would probably have to be marked flaky on all platforms. So I'm pretty sure it's not marked as flaky right now. But yeah, it should be. But that actually brings up another issue, which is that
It's not marked as flaky now, so yeah.
So for tests that fail only on Raspberry Pi devices, and that happens a lot with the flaky tests. They're flaky on Raspberry Pi and not anywhere else. If you want to mark those tests as flaky, you have to mark them as flaky on all Linux variants. And so I don't know if there's any way, and maybe this is something to bring to the build group, but I don't know if there's any way to limit it more so that the ARM7s or whatever the Raspberry Pis are, they have their own section in the status file. I don't know how feasible that is.
Let me take a look.
Yeah, that's the primary reason I don't. When I choose not to mark a flaky test as flaky, that's almost always the reason, is that I don't want it marked on flaky on the CentOS and Ubuntu. Anyway, cool. All right, this is like the 8th time I've said it, and that's totally okay. But anything else we need to talk about today?
Just give me 10 seconds here.
You got it.
I guess you could mark it flaky based on the architecture. I think you can detect ARM in the status file. You have the system variable, and you also have an arc variable. I'll take a better look at this and let you know.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay, that was it.
Okay, anything else, anyone? All right, thanks everybody for making time for this, and I'll try to get some meeting notes up soon.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good weekend, everybody.
Bye.